Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second to last webinar of our series of 6, Understanding Your Consumer Rights. And I would just like to take a minute to do a few housekeeping items. First of all, I'd like to thank our funders, who was the Secrétariat des Québécois Expression d'Anglais and Éducaloi. And we are delighted that our presenter today is actually works as a lawyer and works with Éducaloi. As you know, we've asked you all to keep your microphones closed. There's going to be a little change with the agenda. There will be several question periods after each item has been presented. So as Richard is talking, we suggest that if you have a question, stick it in the chat box so that when we quickly go to the question part, it's all there and ready, and Katya is in a position to ask them. Now, after this webinar, in about 2 to 3 days, we will be sending you a link, which will have the recording, because we post them, upload them all on our social media pages. We will also have a link for a survey. Now, I'm sounding like a broken record, I know, and many of you are repeat customers. Please, that survey is extremely important. The ones that we get back, the results and the remarks are excellent. Thank you for that. But let's say out of 50 people, I may be getting 14 surveys back. That is not sufficient for our funders. So please, and it's very, very easy. You just click on the Survey Monkey, it comes up, you just click on your answers, bing, you send it, it's gone. You have nothing else to do. 2 minutes perhaps. So please, please, if you could keep an eye out for that, we would really appreciate that. And so I think without further ado, I'm going to just take a minute and introduce Richard. Now, many of you know him. Richard is been a regular with us. He bails us out and helps us with a lot of the webinars. As I said, Richard Goldman is a lawyer and plain language specialist with Éducaloi. Éducaloi is a nonprofit organization that provides a lot of legal information. He provides support to the Anglophone community groups across Quebec, offering legal information to the public. Now, it's information, it's not taking on legal cases. And Richard's going to get into Éducaloi when he opens up. He's been a lawyer for more than 30 years. He has a wealth of experience in the community sector. He was a staff lawyer with Project Genesis, a Montreal community group advocating for housing, welfare, and other social rights. And many of us know of Project Genesis. Still around. He also serves as a coordinator of the committee to aid refugees. And in addition to working at Éducaloi, Richard also serves as supervising lawyer at the Just Solutions Legal Clinic of the Montreal City Mission. So without further ado, Richard, I'm turning it right over to you, and thank you so very much for making yourself available to give us this very valuable information, especially with the cost of living and everything going up. We need to be aware of what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Ruth, for that very lovely introduction. And thanks to you and Seniors Action Quebec and Katya for hosting this. It's always a pleasure to present to Seniors Action Quebec. So the topic today we're going to cover some of the basics of consumer rights in Quebec. Before we get to the actual topic of consumer rights, I'd just like to introduce Éducaloi. You touched on some of the points, Ruth, thank you. But just to go into a tiny bit more detail. So as Ruth mentioned, we're a nonprofit organization. We're not the government. We have some government funding. We have some other types of funding like the Barreau de Québec and the Board of Notaries, but we're not part of the government. So we're an independent, neutral, nonprofit, and actually charitable organization. The mission of Éducaloi is to explain to Quebecers their legal rights, and also their legal responsibilities in an everyday language. So anything we do, first of all, because we're nonprofit, is free of charge, whether it be this workshop, whether it be the publications we have online or print publications that we're going to look at in a moment on our website. And everything we do in terms of our mission, we aim to make it understandable. We may aim to make it to simplify the law and make it understandable to the average non-lawyer and non-notary. So whatever we're doing, whether it be today's workshop, whether it be something we have on our website, and if you find that it's not understandable, please let us know, because it means we're not doing our job and we have to up our game. So I'd like to just share the screen for a moment to go and look at our principal resource, which is our website. Okay, so can everybody see that now? Okay. So we're just going to take a moment to walk you through our website. This is our principal resource for reaching the community. It's not our only one. I'll talk about some of the others, but it's our principal resource. We have over 1,000 pieces of content that means articles, pamphlets, guides, even short videos in both English and French. Just about everything we have in one language, we have in the other. You can toggle between the two, between French, you see, that's French, and back to English, okay? And I'll just talk about some of the different sections. And in fact, although you'll be getting the presentation that we're doing today on consumer rights, you can find all the information and more on consumer rights on our website as well, as you'll see. But before we get there, our In the News section, that's where we cover new developments in the law. It could be a new law, it could be a new court case. For example, here's an article from just a few days ago. There's a new law in Quebec, a new law in Canada, actually, that when you sell your house now, it has to be to a person who's either a citizen or a permanent resident, to avoid whatever, we're not here to talk about that topic today, but anyway, the government wants to have to reduce the number of investors from outside Canada who are buying houses. Anyway, all that to say that this is our news section. This is where we put new developments in the law. Now, law by topic is where you can look through at this menu and see all the different topics we cover, so you can get an idea: families and couples, wills and estates, consumers, the topic of today, work, housing, the legal system, criminal law, and so on. That's one way to access our contents. And so, for example, if you would click on consumers, you would see, consumer protection, which is basically the topic of today, and other related things: credit and debt, vehicles, services. So that's another way of finding our contents. Now, another way to do it, and this is not to get to different content, but basically another way to access the same content is through what we call our web guides. So these are guides that we hope are handy, that bring together topics of interest on a certain subject. For example, creating a nonprofit, domestic violence, Indigenous legal issues, the legal aid system in Quebec, tenants and landlords. So if you click on that, you'll see all the main articles of interest for rental housing, for example. So web guides is another way to do it. Workshops page, that's where you'll see the workshops that are open to the public. So you'll see what's coming up, and you can click on them for more information and to register as well. Publications, that's where you can order. We have something like 100 different pamphlets. Pamphlets, of course, very short, but we have detailed guides of up to 28, 30 pages on different topics like caregivers, legal tools, advanced medical directives, and so on. And so since everything is free of charge, if you look down at the bottom, order Éducaloi publications, you can click there, order any publication. It will be sent to you free of charge. If you're with an organization, you want 50, 100 copies of something, you can get it that way. If you're an individual, you want 1 or 2 copies, you can get it as well. It will all be sent to you, even including postage, free of charge. Our About page is where we talk about our mission. You can click here to see all the members of our team. We're about 35 people now, so lawyers, notaries, but also education specialists, communication specialists, and of course some administrative staff, and more about our mission and our different activities. So that's a very quick guided tour of our website. We're also very active in giving workshops like the one today, but also in schools, secondary school and adult education. We're very active on social media. So you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter if you like those different social media. As Ruth touched on, we don't represent people. We're not people's lawyers. We're not a legal clinic. Later in the presentation, I'm going to give you a link to our information and referral guide, where you can find low-cost or free legal information clinics and free or low-cost legal representation. But you can't come to us with a legal situation, say, help me out, I need a lawyer for this. That's not part of our mission. Okay. And so as well, today during the workshop, of course, we're about 60 people. It wouldn't be appropriate for somebody to explain a whole complicated legal situation and get a legal opinion. We're going to have to keep it to general legal information, which will hopefully be useful to you and give you an idea of where to go if you do need more help. Okay, so in terms of the share, I'm going to end the share screen. And we can start, well, we can take questions about Éducaloi, first of all. If you have any questions about our services, what we do, how we could help you, this would be a good time. And after that, we'll move on to the actual presentation on consumer rights. So go ahead if there are any.
Just a quick note, questions go in the chat box, please. It's just to control noise levels.
And of course, maybe you haven't thought about a question yet. We'll have several question periods and then a wrap-up question period at the end. So you don't have any specific question now, but one comes to you later. You can always add it. So, Katja, are there any questions?
No, I think we're good to go.
Okay, so let's go ahead with the actual. Okay, how do you contact Éducaloi? I see it's popping up here by email. You can't contact us for individual questions. That's the thing. So the way to our contact with the public is through these different resources, principally our website. If you have a specific legal question, then it has to go to a legal clinic. If you have a question about our services, there is an email, and I can even give my email. I don't mind if it's a question about your service, our services, like what does Éducaloi do or not do. I don't mind putting my email in the chat, and I'll do that right now. But remember, you can't write me and say, I'm going to court and I need a lawyer. I'll be able to refer you, but I won't be able to take your case. Okay, I'll leave it up to you, Katja, to scan the chat for relevant questions.
Yeah, you got it. No worries.
Okay. So, okay, we're going to go to the actual presentation. So we're going into slideshow. which I can't control it, right? It's you,
No,
Katya.
no, I've got it. It's just that I've got the thing at the top and the slideshow's underneath and I can't get to it. So just give me 2 seconds. There we go. Okay.
No. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's advance. Katya?
It's doing it. I knew this was gonna happen. It's sticking again.
Okay. Do you want me to do the share?
Yeah, do you want to do it? Because it does this with PowerPoint sometimes, and I don't know why. But do you want to do it?
If you're having trouble advancing
Yeah.
it.
Okay. I'll stop sharing and you can go for it.
Oh, sorry, I have to open it myself here. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Richard. I checked it before and it was fine, but I don't know.
Okay. Let's see how this goes. Share. PowerPoint. Share. Okay, everybody see that? Slideshow from the start. Okay, everybody see that now? Sorry. Okay. So,
Yeah, we're good.
So we've already looked at the website. So if there are questions about any of our services, you feel free to ask them. Okay, so what are we covering today? Well, once again, the topic is consumer rights. Consumer rights is a pretty big area, so we've had to focus on some of the things that come up the most. And this is what we'll be looking at. Refunds and exchanges, pricing errors, warranties, and online shopping, and understanding what you can do to solve problems when they occur. Okay, so actually, the administrative thing Ruth has gone over very well, but again, just to point out, there will be a number of question periods after each topic. Okay, so have you ever had a problem with a purchase? There's a lot of you here. There's 64 participants. So if you have a specific type of problem that you want to mention that hopefully we can cover, you can write it in the chat as we go, and we can see if that's something that we can cover. Almost all of us have had some kind of a problem one time or another, and we're hoping to cover the most common today. Okay, so here's the first section, and we do this as a kind of, try to make it a little bit interactive. So the toaster is shown as $15.99 on the shelf. When the cashier scans the item, it shows $26.99. Okay, so you see this nice toaster on the shelf. There's a little sticker that says $15.99 on it, or the sticker is on the shelf that says $15.99, but you take it to the cashier scans it, and it says $26.99. Okay, so this is a little quiz just to make things interactive. You're not expected to know the answer. That's what the workshop is for. So what should I do? Option A, I pay $26.99. It's a simple mistake. Option B, I asked to pay $15.99. That was the price on the shelf. Option C, I asked to pay $5.99. So let's take a second and maybe if you want to take part in this quiz, just write which of these, A, B, or C, you think you should do. Okay, we'll just take a moment to do that. And Katya can tell me how the answers are looking in the chat.
Yes. So far, we've got 4 or 5 Bs and 1 C.
Okay.
And another C and another B.
Okay, so nobody thinks it's A. correct? There's not a single A. Katja?
Nope, sorry, I couldn't
Oh.
find the mute button. No A.
Okay. Okay. So now keep it in mind, whatever you thought it was. And we're going to look at the situation and come back and answer this question. Okay. So what is the issue? This is what we call a pricing error. Sorry, just resizing my screen here. Okay. So we call this a pricing error. Now, what should you know? You will often see this, probably just about everyone has seen this in Metro or Provigo or someplace, or Canadian Tire. And it actually shows the price accuracy policy, which is a requirement in Quebec if you're using an electronic scanner at the cash. Okay. Now it's not that easy to read when you see it behind the cashier, 6 feet away and not that big. So what does it actually say? If the price scanned at the cash register is higher than the price shown at the shelf, so that's the situation we're dealing with. You saw $5.99 on the shelf, $15.99 on the shelf. You went to the cash, it was $26.99. So if the price scanned at the cash register is higher than the price shown on the shelf or advertised, if it costs less than $10, you get the item for free. If it costs more than $10, the store must charge you the correct price with a $10 discount. They must take $10 off the price. Okay. Now, some important things. If you buy several identical items, the price will be corrected for each one, but the discount will only apply to one item. So you can't if you happen to know that there's a mistake in their system, you can't go in and buy 10 toasters and take advantage of this. And another thing to keep in mind, some types of items are exempt from this policy because discounts are not allowed, such as tobacco, medications, or for some things, a minimum price is set by law, such as milk. So even if there's a mistake, it's still going to be the price that scans at the register. Okay. So now we come back to our question. The toaster is shown as $15.99 on the shelf. When the cashier scans the item, it shows $26.99. And the answer to our question, option C, I asked to pay $5.99. Okay, so I think that's what most of you said. Now, why is it option C? Because the item cost more than $10. So the store must charge you the correct price. What's the correct price? $15.99 minus $10. So you get this nice toaster for $5.99. Okay. So you all get 25 points for that. Okay. Because, we like to reward interactivity. So are there any, this is the first section already, pricing errors. Are there any questions or situations that people want to share with that?
So far so far there's no questions, but I guess I have a question maybe just to get it going.
Okay.
What do you do in a situation like this where perhaps the shop manager doesn't or the employees don't know the policy? How do you proceed?
You even if they don't know the policy, if they're using a scanner, they should have that red sign that we saw before up. And you tell them, please read your policy, because that's what it says. I've had this a couple of times over the years. Not long ago at Provigo, where I wanted to buy some coffee for, it was marked at, I think, $16, and then I got to cash, it was $21. The cashier had no idea what I was talking about and said, oh, did you just change your mind? You don't want to take the coffee? I said, no, I'm allowed to benefit from this policy. So called the manager, who did know and was pretty upset about this, went back to look at the rack, and there was this huge rack of coffee that was, it was all of the bags were labeled at that price. And so they had no choice but to give it to me with the $10 discount. And then I could see that they were systematically, correcting all the prices afterwards. So I think you can expect that, it won't be surprising that a cashier is not aware of it, doesn't come up that often. Like a lot of cashiers, of course, are students and don't work for very long at the job. A manager would normally be there a couple of years and would be familiar with it. So I would say ask them to read it and to read their own policy and to act accordingly. Does that answer, Katja?
Yeah, we're good. I just wanted to say, Jewel, I know you've raised your hand a couple of times. So normally we ask people to put their questions in the chat, like we said at the beginning, just because of time and recording. So if you want to put your question in the chat, Jewel, please do so. And okay, so we're God, I'm losing my voice. Sorry. We have a question here. Someone's asking, what happens when they want to take $10 off the $26.99, for example?
Well, that's not the correct price. So that would be wrong. I mean, that would bring you back to, you'd end up paying more than the correct price because it'd be $16.99. So they're just doing it wrong. Now, of course, I mean, if a manager just says, I don't care or something like that, you can't call the police. There may be a limit to how much you want to do for a $15 or $20 item. We will look at what you could do at the end when there is a problem. So if a manager says, policy schmolicy, I don't care, I'm not taking money out of my cash for this, even though they have the policy up and they use an electronic scanner. There are things you can do when people don't follow the law. So we'll look at that. So what we're basically looking at now is what should happen if people follow the law. And then in the last section, we're going to look at what you can do if a merchant should say, I don't care, consumer protection doesn't interest me. This is my store. This is how I do things. And, they're not following the law. Okay. I hope that answers.
Yeah, I think you're good, Richard, if you want to continue.
Okay, and remember, if there's any question on any part, even if the end of the whole show, so to speak, you have a question just about Éducaloi and our services, we can come back to that with pleasure. Okay, so continuing. So yeah, that was the question period. Okay, different scenario. All of them are based on toasters, by the way. I would prefer having a red toaster instead of the one I just bought. Okay, so you bought a toaster, no problem with it except the color. You bought a white one, you take it home, you think, this is really pretty bland. I'd rather have a red one instead. Okay, so here again, what should I do? Option A, I ask to exchange it. Option B, I check whether it's possible to exchange it. Option C, too bad for me. I should have picked the right color in the first place. So I'll give you a minute to put what you think what you think you should do here, since you would like a red toaster.
So we're getting, there's one option A and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 A's and 6 B's.
Okay. All right. So keep that in mind, and we'll go through it and we'll come back to the question. Okay. So what's the issue here? So we saw the first section, the issue was a pricing error. This is a different issue. I changed my mind about something I bought and I want to exchange it or to get a refund. Okay, that's the issue. So what should I know? If the item isn't defective, okay, that's the case. You're not saying that the toaster doesn't work. It just has to do with the color of the toaster. So if the item isn't defective, the store doesn't have to take it back. Some stores, especially large ones, do have a policy allowing exchanges and refunds within a certain time. for example, 30 days. Before buying, you can ask if there's an exchange or refund policy, and if so, what's the time limit? Okay, so that's the information that's relevant here. Now, just parentheses, if the item is defective, the store has to provide a replacement or refund, but we're going to come back to that later in the workshop. Okay, so remember we said a lot of stores, especially big stores, have a refund policy, even though by law, they don't have to. Okay, they don't have to have it. So here, for example, one of our favorites here in Quebec, Canadian Tire, and this is their policy. Unopened items with a receipt in original packaging and returned within 90 days of purchase will receive a refund to the original method of payment or an exchange item. Okay, so if we look at the simplest example, that you brought it home, and then you decided that it wasn't for you, you didn't open it, then you can bring it back if it's Canadian Tire and they sell a lot of toasters, and they will gladly, apparently, according to their policy, refund, either refund you or exchange it for the color that you like. Okay, so here we go back to the question. I would prefer having a red toaster instead of the white one I just bought. What should I do? Option B, I check whether it's possible to exchange it. So as I believe this was the overwhelming favorite. So there you go with the 25 points. But in any event, you get points just for being here and finding out about your rights. So everybody wins when we find out about our rights. Okay, so we're at our next question period. So Katja, anybody?
Yeah. There's one question that's come in, but I'll just buy some time and I'll start with the question from my own personal life experience. So so I went to a shop. I bought a dehydrator, and it kept tripping my my fuse. So I brought it back to Canadian Tire, and I was within the 30 days, and they said, no, we can't refund you or exchange you, but we'll give you store credit. Is that, for lack of a better word, kosher?
Well, yes, in the sense that unless you can show that it was defective, then you're lucky to get anything. And under their policy, we could check their policy more carefully about, just by coincidence, it's Canadian Tire, because it was any other store.
It was Canadian Tire, by the way. That's why it triggered the memory.
Yeah, it seems like, okay, if it's unopened, there's no problem. And it's actually 90 days. They're pretty generous. Items that are opened, damaged, or not in resaleable condition may not be eligible for a refund or exchange. So it seems like even if you've opened it, then it seems like they're saying it's at our discretion. If you've opened it, and we're talking about something that's not defective. Now, I'm no electrician, so I can't say if there was a case to be made to say that this actually kept tripping your fuse because there was something wrong with it, as opposed to the fact that you maybe were at the limit of what your, I don't know, is it fuse box could handle. So to the extent that you could show that it's actually defective, we're going to come back to that, and they would have to provide a refund or an exchange for a non-defective product. But if you can't show that, then you're kind of at their mercy, and a store credit is a pretty reasonable offer. Okay.
I thought so, but okay.
Okay.
So a question came in, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. So, you know, when supermarkets do sales and you can buy X amount, limited quantities per person, like, you know, max of 5 on this. So this person is saying that she and 2 of her friends went to a supermarket, and they bought the max amount of the items that were on sale, but all of the items were like, they were sharing a trolley, a cart. And when they went to the cash to pay, the cashier refused to allow them to to buy it, and they had their, like, they showed their ID and they explained it was, this is mine, this is hers, this is the other person's. And he refused to call the manager to settle the issue or to figure out what was the problem. So what, in a situation like that, what can you do?
I would say, I would try to not deal with it as kind of a legal issue. I would say, fine, no problem, have one go through and the other go through, you know, come back 15 minutes later and go to a different cashier. It's, you know, you can't make everything into a legal issue, much as, even though I'm trained as a lawyer to see legal issues everywhere. So I would deal with it in a common sense way. You know, you're in a line. I have to say, even with pricing policy, I sometimes see a $1 difference, and there's like 7 people behind me in line. I'm not going to stop the line for 5 minutes with 7 angry people for $1. So, you know, so I think sometimes, even if you could insist on something, you could make, I mean, another way to do it, and this is your choice, is to say, we ain't moving. We have 2 IDs. We each have 5 items. The fact that it's in the same basket is irrelevant. We're not moving. And until you get your manager to resolve this, this line ain't advancing. And that could work too. So, and I think you would be right if you did that, but how much stress do you want to go through? In the same 15 or 20 minutes, possibly one could say, okay, I'll take my 5, my friend won't take her 5. You know, you leave them at the cash and the other 5 at the cash. 15 minutes later, you go back and the friend buys the same, you know, takes another 5 off the rack and goes to a different cashier, and you know, that would probably work fine. So that would be my response.
Ruth, I'm just going to squeeze in one final question because it's an important one, if that's okay.
And I think we're okay for time also. So.
A question came, yeah, we're okay. Okay. So someone asked, and it's a very good question, and it's come up twice. Do these policies that policies or laws, Richard, that you're explaining, do they also apply to customers who are using the self-checkout?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And normally at the self-checkout, there is one staff person there to deal with problems at the self-checkout. They save a lot of money by having one person for, let's say, 4 machines instead of 4 cashiers. But that one person is just like the cashier and can, you know, can go get the manager, or maybe they have the authority to give you the refund. But absolutely. We're at the 44-minute point. We didn't actually mention this, but to everybody, but we thought it would be a good idea to take a health break at 45 minutes, which is roughly halfway through the presentation. Are people okay with that, to take a 5-minute health break?
Yes, I was going to call it, Richard, when Katia was finished with the questions. So we don't want everybody unmuting at this point. So like Richard said, if you all could take 5 minutes and stretch, get a cup of coffee, and we'll see you back.
In 5 minutes.
Well, it's, yeah, five minutes. Yeah, that should do it.
Okay.
Okay, great.
See you in a few minutes. Then there's some, and there's questions, right? There's some questions.
There are some questions. So, okay, here we go. If an item sells for $8.99 and the cash shows $9.99, do I get the item for free? I think
yes, because it's less than $10.
And that's it. Okay.
Then we'll continue. Remember, we'll have the opportunity for more questions at the end. Okay, new situation. My toaster caught fire after 6 months because of a broken part. I want to get another one. Okay, what should I do? Option A, just buy another one. I have no choice. Option B, I ask for a replacement. Option C, I check if I bought an extended warranty. Okay, so let's see what people think. So toaster
So
caught
far,
fire after 6 months. What do we got, Katja?
so far we have one C, two C's, two B's, three B's, four B's, five B's, and three C's as they're coming in.
Okay, and no A's.
No A's.
Okay, very good.
Oh,
So,
we have probably an A or a B. There we go.
okay, very good. Hedging the bets. Okay, so we're going to look at the legal information and come back to the question. Okay, so what's the issue here? So far we've looked at two issues. Now we're going on to the third. What is the issue? My toaster is dangerous. It also, it caught fire. Also, I need a new toaster. Okay, so the legal information here concerns what's known as the legal warranty. So what should I know? Every item sold by a store or business in Quebec is automatically covered by a legal warranty. A warranty, which is also known as a guarantee, it's the same, just another way of saying the same thing, is a legal obligation to repair or replace an item if necessary. Okay, so what does this mean? The seller must repair or replace the item if there's a problem with quality, durability, or safety. So what do we mean by each of these? Quality, the product must not be defective. You must be able to use the product for the purpose for which it was intended. For example, a lawnmower that doesn't cut grass is defective. A snow blower that doesn't remove snow is defective. So that's quality. Durability. The product must last a reasonable amount of time considering the price and type of product. For example, an expensive high-end product will be expected to last longer than a cheaper product. A fridge or a stove will be expected to last longer than a phone charger that you buy at the dollar store, for example. And this can be tricky because what is a reasonable amount of time? That can be a tricky question. There's some obvious, like a stove versus a phone charger, but some that are less obvious. And maybe a toaster is somewhere in between. Safety, the product you buy must be safe. It must not pose a danger to people who use it. You must, and if there's some products are more risky than others. So, if there's something is, let's say, uses gasoline or something, and there's a risk involved, then you have to be warned about it. But it can never be dangerous. That is to say, worse than risky, but actually like dangerous to you. For example, a snowblower that blows snow into your face is not safe. Okay, so there's a legal warranty on these three issues: quality, durability, and safety. So now let's see how this applies. My toaster caught fire after 6 months. I want to get another one. What should I do? Option C, I ask for a replacement. Why do you ask for a replacement? 6 months, although a toaster is not expected to last as long as a stove, pretty much any product that you pay more than $1 or $2 for should last more than 6 months. So I think you have a strong argument there in saying that it's defective and it didn't last long enough. But we made this one really easy for you because not only is it defective in terms of durability and how long it should last. Remember, there's three things here. Durability. So I think we're pretty safe in saying a toaster, it costs $15 or whatever, should last more than 6 months. But even if we were wrong about that, it was unsafe. A toaster should not catch fire ever, especially after 6 months. Maybe you should find an old toaster in the attic that from your grandmother, and you plug it in. Maybe that wasn't a good idea because the toaster's 60 years old. But this is a relatively new toaster. There's absolutely no reason, no excuse, no justification for it to catch fire. So you've got it for two reasons that you have the right to ask for a replacement. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions on this topic of legal warranty or anything else that we've covered so far. So that's the
Yes.
summary of the legal warranty. Okay.
So far, two questions have come in. I'll piggyback them together though, so I'll put them into one. So legal warranties does the way you use a machine or a product affect the warranty? So for example, frequency or intensity of use, or if you're just a bit rough, say with your lawnmower or toaster or what have you.
Well, it could affect, I mean, everything has a certain, range of uses. So if you're a little, I mean, if you bring it back to the store and say it broke, you're going to have a discussion with the store. And if they see your lawnmower had like a few dents in it, I think they might say, well, you're mowing your lawn. If you're smashing into rocks, that's not our problem. That's going beyond the normal use. And then some products may have a certain instructions as to how long you can use them at a time. Like, I don't know for sure, but maybe let's say a blender might say, can't be used for more than an hour at a time. So if you use it, or not for commercial use, but if you instead of using it in your kitchen for a half an hour each day, you open a cafe and you use it constantly for 8 hours a day, you would have violated the instructions. It's not made for that type of use. So I guess most general answer I can give is the way you use it should conform to the intention of the product and any specific instructions. If you go outside of that, it could cause a problem. And if specifically you use it in a manner that it could be damaged, I'm giving one example, like, you have a rocky terrain and you keep banging your lawnmower or snowblower or whatever into rocks. That's just, maybe an extreme example. And a manufacturer or a store could say, no, this was an abusive use of the product. So that could be, what we're saying in effect is the quality and durability of the product were acceptable under normal use, and the manufacturer of the store would be saying what you did went outside of the, went beyond the expected quality or durability of the product.
Yeah. I was just going to let you take a sip of water.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. I saw you going for it. So two questions have come in. I'll let you plug back in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What happens if after 6 months, after the warranty period expires and something happens and you bring whatever broke or back to the shop, but you don't have your invoice? What can you do?
It could be a problem if they say we don't know who you are. I mean, there's different ways to prove that you bought something if you bought it unless you paid cash and don't have the receipt. There is there are different ways. If you have you show that Visa, you spent $126 at Rona, on August 1st, and you say, look, obviously this was for the lawnmower, which you point out to, and you say, look, there's the same lawnmower for $126. The manufacturer, if the store, if they're reasonable, should take your word for it. Okay. If not, we're dealing with a situation where we're going to see when you can't reach an agreement with a store or with a company that sold you something, some of the things that you can do. So that's in the last, or I guess the next section of the presentation. I just want to point out, though, this is very important, there isn't a specific legal warranty period, and this is many merchants are very misleading about this. So, for example, Amazon has this policy that You can return something, I believe it's within 1 month, and it's kind of almost no questions asked. And if you're outside of that month, it's like, forget about it. Doesn't matter why you're returning it. But that's incorrect. I mean, it's nice if they have a 1 month, no questions asked, because they don't have to do that. We saw before, if you change your mind about something, a seller doesn't have to take it back. So that part is good. But for them to say that a product, even if it's defective, they don't have to take it back after 2 months because you're outside of your 1 month return period or 1 month warranty or whatever they want to call it, that's completely false. It has to be reasonable. There has to be, it has to last a reasonable amount of time. So if you buy even, let's say, some electronic products like charger or whatever, you know, and you don't expect it to last as long as a fridge or a stove, but you buy a $26 iPhone charger from Amazon and it lasts 2 months and you want to return it, and they say that's you can't return it, you're outside your period, your 1 month return period, that's false. They're not following the law. And I've had this kind of a situation with them and argued, and they gave in. I actually sent them our Éducaloi article on legal warranties, and they gave in and they replaced a product after 2 months, so a similar product to that. And it's not just Amazon, it's very common. Apple, for example, when you buy a computer for them, they have this 1 year Apple Care thing, and they try to sell you a 2 year extended warranty. They push that a lot. That's this 1 year thing where they'll service your computer, which could cost, you know, an Apple computer can be pretty expensive, and then say after 13 months, no, we have no responsibility. That's completely false. Okay, so a $1,500 computer has to last more than 12 months. They can't say after 13 months, sorry, you didn't buy an extended warranty, it's 13 months, our Apple Care is up after 12 months, we can't do anything for you. You have recourses, and we're going to look at the recourses in that situation, because legally that's not correct to say, sorry, our responsibility, whether it's Amazon after 1 month or Apple after 12 months or a store after 6 months or whatever, that's not correct. It has to last a reasonable amount of time, taking into account the type of product and how much you paid for it. Okay.
So there's one more question. I was going to bank it, but because you started talking about extended warranties. So basically, are extended warranties worth the paper there? What's that expression? The paper they're on? Are they worth the money? Yeah, exactly.
In general, no, because of this rule that things should last a reasonable amount of time. So let's take the example of the Apple computer. If your Apple gives out after 15 months and you didn't buy the extended warranty, you're going to have a big argument with them. And you might even have to sue them, which is what we're going to look at in the last section, or complain to Consumer Protection Office. These things we're going to look at. But you have the right to have it repaired. Now there is a convenience, because if you paid the $200 or $300 for the extended warranty, it'll be no questions asked. You bring it in, they'll fix it or replace it. So there is a cost in terms of stress of asserting your rights, unfortunately. But you're basically, in a way, paying for nothing with an extended warranty, because either it lasted a reasonable amount of time or it didn't, and a computer should last 2 or 3 years. But you will have a much harder time with the manufacturer, whether it be Apple or Lenovo or whatever, if you didn't take an extended warranty and you come back after, say, 1.5 years or 2 years. So a short answer, they're not really worth it, because things should last a reasonable amount of time. Longer answer, if you're somebody who really doesn't want stress and money, you value less stress over more savings, then maybe it's worth it to you. But that's a very personal thing. Okay.
Basically, to each their own.
Yes, we could say that.
Okay. We're good. There's no other questions. So
okay,
so
so we'll
back to
move
you.
on. Okay, so we saw that. And so everybody gets 25 points. I think here as well, the majority said ask for a replacement. Okay. Okay. So there's two more sections. One is online purchases and one is what you can do when problems come up. So I bought a toaster online. It was supposed to arrive in 10 days, but it's still not here after 2 months. Okay. What should I do? Option A, I contact the seller to cancel the purchase and ask for a refund. Option B, I get mad at myself and promise to never buy online again. Option C, I ask my credit card company to refund me. Okay, so we'll give people a minute or two to see what they think.
So far, we have A's. Another A. We got a C.
Okay,
A and C. A and C. So yeah, it's between A and C.
okay, so nobody's beating themselves up and blaming themselves with option B. Okay, that's
So
that
far, so
shows-
good. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good group in terms of mental health. That's very good. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the issue? The company has not respected the promised delivery date. Remember, it was supposed to arrive in 10 days. It's still not here after 10 months, after 2 months, sorry. Okay, what should I know? If more than 30 days have passed since the promised delivery date and the item has not yet arrived, you can cancel the contract. Okay. How do you cancel it? Send a notice to the seller explaining why you are canceling it. In this case, the item did not arrive within 30 days. The seller then has 15 days to refund you. If the seller doesn't refund you, you can contact your credit card company. They must refund you in this case. Okay. And some tips for online shopping. Make sure you have the name, address, and email of the seller. Make sure the product is fully described. Make sure the full cost, including taxes and any shipping costs, are indicated. The currency of payment should be indicated. Big hit for us here in Canada. If we buy something thinking it's Canadian and it turns out to be US, it's about $1.37 or something. Now, this is something I can't tell you any more about this, but apparently the website should begin with this, HTTPS. If there's some technically minded people here, you can explain why that is. And absolutely only provide the information necessary, not things like your social insurance number. Okay, if you're buying online, you don't have much choice but to give your credit card, but it should not go into personal information that they have no business asking. Okay, so
Richard, do you want me to explain the HTTPS? Because
yes,
I know
go
what
ahead.
it is. Okay.
Okay.
So the HTTPS is called an SSL package, and it encrypts your payment info. So, for example, if you go on major websites like Amazon or what have you, you'll know it's HTTPS because you'll see the little green lock. So that shows that it's secure. So the S is basically to show that the website is secure and you, in theory, should be okay paying online. If a website doesn't have an S, it's just HTTP, then it means the website is of a certain age and not up to date, and it can get a little bit more complicated.
Okay, thank you so much. Always good to have somebody from the younger generation present. Okay.
Here to serve.
Thank you. Okay, so there's some tips for online shopping, and we have pretty much answered this. So what should I do? My toaster didn't arrive. Option A, contact the seller to cancel the purchase and ask for a refund. And option C does come into play if they refuse, okay, if they don't issue the refund. But assuming that everybody's going to follow the law, they should refund it. Of course, if they were going to do things properly, you would have had your toaster already, or they would have written to you and say, you know, there's a delay. Do you want to continue with the purchase or cancel it? But anyway, based on these very simple facts, it simply didn't arrive. Nobody contacted you to explain why or ask what you want to do. You contact the seller to cancel the purchase and ask for a refund. Okay, so any questions about that?
Yeah, a couple of questions, or one question's come in, which is a really good one. So what do you do if you buy something online from a private seller? So, and you never get the item. So, you know, specifically on Amazon, you get a lot of private sellers, and sometimes they are guaranteed by Amazon, sometimes they're not. So what happens if you buy something and it never arrives?
Well, okay, so if it's guaranteed by Amazon, then I guess Amazon will, refund you. I'm not sure. It's an Amazon policy. It's not a law. Here's the thing: if they're in Quebec, then we're falling into the situation of if a simple purchase, like you wanted to buy whatever, let's use lawnmower, somebody's lawnmower. You see their ad on Craigslist. Normally you would go over and, go to they take it out of the garage and you give them $100 and everything happens the same time. If it's online and they're saying pay in advance and then they don't deliver the whatever it is, you have a real problem because you have a contract, you honored your part and they didn't honor their part. Now, if it's somebody in Quebec, you could sue them. This is where we're going to look at in the last section, what your recourses are when somebody, whether it's a private seller or whether it's Canadian Tire or anybody else, doesn't honor their part of the contract. If they're outside of Quebec, you're really in a bad situation because, it's very hard to, if it's in Quebec, even for a relatively small sum, like a couple of $100s, the small claims court works very well. If it's outside of Quebec, it's probably just money lost because you're going to have to figure out if you can sue in the small claims court there, figure out how to do it, figure out whether it's possible to do it remotely and so on. So I'd have to say if it's a private seller, and you're not just going there and exchanging cash for the item, you're actually buying online. It'd be a pretty good idea to stick to Quebec sellers. Okay. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw, is it okay if I throw 2 more questions?
Yes,
We're okay time-wise? Okay. So one question just popped into my head. You know how there was supply chain issues for the longest time and maybe there will be some again? What happens in situations like that when items arrive delayed because of something that's outside of basically everyone's control? What recourse do you have then for online?
You're in that situation. Like if it's not delivered in 30 days, you have the right to cancel. Now, do you want to cancel? If you know that first of all, a good practice for the merchant would be to contact you and say, we're having a supply chain thing. It's going to take a month more than we expected. Do you want to go ahead with a purchase or do you want to cancel? And then it's up to you to decide. If nobody contacts you but you would prefer, you're okay with waiting longer because you really want the item rather than just getting your money back, a good practice for you could be to reach out to the merchant and you ask that question. Is it a supply chain thing? Do you know when it's going to come? But if the question is, what are your rights? You definitely have the right to cancel. It may not be the merchant's fault, and probably isn't the merchant's fault that it's taking longer, but it's not your fault. And Quebec, consumer law is very clear on this. You have the right to cancel if it's not delivered within 30 days. Okay.
Okay. A question's come in about loyalty points, be it either with airlines or hotels or shops. So apparently, depending on the company, there could be an expiry policy or a non-expiry policy. So what recourse do you have in dealing with issues with expired loyalty points? If you can't carry them over, I guess.
I don't know the answer for loyalty points and what are the specific rules. I'll tell you, I mean, the thing that comes up a lot, we get a lot in workshops is gift cards that you buy from Renault Bray or Indigo or whatever. They can't have an expiry date. If there's some manufacturers that are some stores that are putting an expiry date, like saying, expires December 31st, 2023, it's not valid. Somebody paid 50 or 100 or whatever for that card and they have the right to use it. Loyalty points, I don't know the answer if there are specific rules like that, if you're allowed to put an expiry date. I know there was a huge class action against Aeroplan for something like that. I think they offloaded it to a private company and then the private company said something like, oh, we're not honoring it or we're not honoring it after a certain date. And I have to say, I didn't follow that closely enough. So I think there's maybe some controversy as to whether you can have an expiry date. So I would have to say this is something you should, we're going to see now for more information, for assistance, for recourses in the last section, what you can do, and particularly the Consumer Protection Office. They may have an article specifically on loyalty points, or if you call them at their information number, they'll certainly be able to answer whether there's special rules or whether you can, a company can just put an expiry date and then you either use it or you don't. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Back to you.
Okay, so we're at the last section, which is solving problems. So we're going to look at some of the things that can happen. So, we looked at what the law is supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to, return your toaster if it's defective. You're supposed to be able to, anyway, we looked at different rules, refund and pricing error and so on. And we looked at how it's supposed to work. What if it doesn't work? Okay, so you have a disagreement. They didn't honor the pricing policy, or they're not giving you a new toaster even though it's defective, and so on. All the things you can imagine that go wrong. So what are the steps to follow? The first thing you must do is notify the seller in writing of the problem. Okay, you need to explain the problem. For example, that the product is defective. This is called the notification stage. And then you can try to negotiate a satisfactory solution. So remember, this is the way, going back to some of the things we talked about. When a product is defective, the seller must generally do one of the following things: give you a full refund, reduce the purchase price, if you agree. These are things that, if you reach an agreement, that you can come up with one of these solutions. A full refund, if that's what you want. Reduce the purchase price. Maybe there's a little, the product works, but you see that there's a chip in the paint or something like that, or a sofa that the leg is not quite, they're not all quite even, so you have to figure out some solution to fix it. Maybe you're happy with the sofa, but you'd like a reduced purchase price. Replacement, that's another option. Pay you the cost of replacing it if it's something that they don't even sell anymore, or repair the product. So these are different things that could be a solution that you agree upon with the seller. Okay, but if you're not satisfied, the general solution seems kind of extreme, but is basically to go to court. You send a formal written notice, usually giving 10 days to do what you were asking. For example, refund the purchase price, give you a replacement product, whatever it is that you find to be the appropriate solution. You give them 10 days. On our website, Éducaloi, you will see on our consumer section, we give examples of the type of notice and so on, as well as we have a whole web file on using the small claims court. So that would be, if you don't get a satisfactory answer, file a claim at the small claims court up to 15,000 for the small claims court. I think they're going to raise it shortly, under a new bill, a new project of law, but right now it's 15,000. File a claim if it's more than 15,000, which you probably would need a lawyer for. So we're talking about things that are going a little bit beyond the examples we gave here: a toaster, a snowblower, a lawnmower, talking about a very major purchase here. It would be the Court of Quebec, and you would probably have to hire a lawyer. Now, another possibility, and one doesn't exclude the other, is filing a complaint with the Consumer Protection Office. And there you have the website, and I'm going to put in the chat in a minute also the phone number which you can reach them. And of course, you're going to get this presentation also. The Consumer Protection Office is an extremely important resource for information. So for example, the loyalty points, I'm sure they can answer on the phone, and they probably even, they possibly even have an article dealing about it on your website. Now, the office does not normally get involved in individual disputes, so they won't mediate between you and the seller, but it can investigate business practices and conduct. It can inspect places of business and documents, and it itself can take legal action in the courts directly against a merchant if there's an illegal practice. So let's say a merchant is systematically ignoring the accuracy in pricing policy, and you know a couple of times you got the wrong price, you argued with them, they said we don't care, we're not following that, we're not giving you the discount or the free product. If you complain to the Consumer Protection Office, they can investigate. They can even take the business to court. So that could be a way of solving the problem. It may not get you your $10 that they should have given you for the item, but it will force the business to clean up its act. Okay. Now, here for more information, the Consumer Protection Office. So they unlike some other government agencies where it's just like 1-800 number. If you go on their website, you'll see for pretty much every region of Quebec, they have a different phone number. So I put Montreal, but you can go to their website, and I'm going to put in a moment their website in the chat, so you can click on it easily, or just I'll tell you another easy way to do it is Google Consumer Protection Office Quebec. You'll get right there. Okay, and then for different, remember I said you can't come to Éducaloi and say I have this legal problem. Can you talk to the seller? Can you represent me? Whatever. We're not a legal clinic. I'm going to put the link in the chat to our legal information and referral guide. Okay, so I'm going to do that in a moment. So we're at the last question period. I want to congratulate everybody. You got 100 points, 25 out of 25 on each of the quiz. So you've won a greater knowledge of your rights and how to have them respected. So while we're in this last question period, I'm just going to put in the chat those two links that I mentioned. So I'm going to stop the share now. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat and put that information in. Okay, so Consumer Protection Office and Éducaloi legal info and referral guide. Okay, so that concludes my part of the presentation. So I'm open to any questions on any part of the presentation. So Katya?
Yeah. So I think this is a question, but if not, I'll make it into a question. So someone in the chat was saying that they went to the small claims court, they won their case, but the small Quebec company has still not paid them for the product that they haven't received even after a year. And the reason for that is apparently the seller defaulted. So then apparently
Meaning went bankrupt?
I think that's what
okay.
I think that's what it means. Yeah. And then apparently the bailiff advised this person that they would have to provide a $300 deposit and that there would be no guarantee that they could collect. So I guess the question is, what do you do in a situation like that when the company goes bust and you still haven't received anything?
If the company, it says no, not bankrupt. So Brenda will have to explain what is meant by default. So if it's not bankrupt, then you get a bailiff. I mean, if it's a company here in Quebec, again, it's really complicated if it's outside Quebec. If it's a company here in Quebec, you get a bailiff and they go and basically start doing an inventory of their furniture that's going to be sold at an auction. It's going to be seized and sold at an auction if they don't pay you what they're supposed to. And that will normally do the trick. Now, the problem is the bailiff doesn't know for sure what's going to happen. And they may ask, and I guess they are asking, for a deposit up front in case you don't get your money. They don't want to go and do all this work and not get paid. If everything works according to plan, this is a company in Quebec which at least has an office with some furniture and a couple of computers, then it is going to work. And the bailiff will be reimbursed from the proceeds, and you will get that $300 back. But whenever you're doing a seizure against somebody, there's some risk involved, and there's always some risk involved. But if it's a company that has an office in Quebec, an establishment in Quebec, and at least some office furniture, then you're about 99% sure that even though you're giving the deposit to the bailiff, then you're going to get your money, and the bailiffs will be able to refund themselves. Okay.
So apparently, yeah, the person clarified that they defaulted at the small claims court, so not bankrupt, but this company defaulted at small claims
Well,
court.
the only thing I can understand by defaulted at small claims court means they didn't appear in court. If they didn't appear in court, the small claims court will issue a default judgment, and the default judgment is valid. I mean, if I'm sued in court and I don't bother to show up and I'm condemned to pay $5,000, I have a judgment of $5,000 against me, and it's my fault that I didn't show up. So that's the way I would that's the only understanding I can have of default. Now, it's true that if it makes it a little more complicated if there's a default judgment, because they might go back and say, well, I was prevented from going to court, and try to reopen the case. But unless they do that, the judgment stands, and it can be executed by a bailiff. Okay.
Great. So here's the big question. Airline companies, what do you do with delays?
Okay, there's a whole charter of rights of airline passengers that came into effect last year. I'm not an expert on this by any means. There's an advocacy group that deals just with that, so you might be able to find them online. I don't have their name, but actually the Consumer Protection Office should be your first call. My understanding is, and I'm no expert, and it goes beyond the basics that we're covering in this workshop, is it's very strict now. Even if it's not the airline's fault, if I understand correctly, they have to refund you or give you another flight, or I'm not exactly sure what the different penalties, even if it's not their fault. I think it's very strict now. The airlines are upset about this, but it's just, it goes beyond the scope of this workshop. So I would say first stop the Consumer Protection Office. You might look up, I don't know their name, maybe somebody who's handy can even try like Airline Advocacy Group, Airline Passenger Advocacy Group Canada in Google, and paste it in the chat, or whoever is asking the question could try this after the workshop is finished. Okay.
Thanks for that. I decided to throw it in because there were a couple of airline stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll let Richard.
Okay.
But the other one, which is part of this webinar, what do you do if there's a sale price on an item, but the sale is over? Does the shop still need to respect the sale price, or do they just charge you back regular full price?
In my opinion, and that's happened to me, that I go to, I see this great price, $10 off. I go to the cash. It's $10 more than I thought. I make a fuss. They go back to the shelf, and it says, expired January 31st. I find that upsetting, but I think they're okay. I'm giving my opinion. I've never, I never called the Consumer Protection Office to see what they think. I think if the sale says expired January 31st and it's now February 7th or whatever, and they forgot to take it off, I think it's an honest mistake, and that, I can't legally complain about it. That's my view of it.
Okay. A question came in about manufacturer warranties. So the question is, if on the manufacturer warranties, it states that you can either replace or repair an item, but then the seller says, no, we're going to refund you, what can you do? Let's say you don't want the refund, but you want it replaced or repaired. What can you do?
The seller is offering to refund, but you want a replacement?
I think that's what the person is asking, yeah.
I'm not sure if you can do anything, because they didn't meet their part of the contract, but they're offering to, put you in the same situation you were before. I guess it's because it's some item that's hard to get or something like that. I'd have to say, check with the Consumer Protection Office. My feeling, but I haven't checked this, is that there's probably nothing you can do. They didn't meet their part of the contract, but they're willing to put you in the same situation you were in before. But I'd have to say, if you're in exactly that situation, it's an item that you really wanted, you can't get somewhere else, you would like a replacement and not a refund, I'd have to say check with the Consumer Protection Office. I'm not that optimistic about it, but they can check the exact regulation on this. Okay, sorry, I couldn't give a definite answer there.
So I see that someone has their hand up, and it's Andrew. But are you okay if I just if Andrew just asks his question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's
In
fine.
Okay, perfect.
I'd like to know, is there a sales tax, Quebec sales tax on books?
There's only one tax. I think it's the Quebec. I forget. One of the levels of government said we're not taxing books. I'm 100% sure. And I can't remember if it's Quebec or the federal. That should be something you could find in Google in a second. But whenever you buy a book, you should only see one sales tax. There should never be two sales tax on a book. Okay.
Thank you.
I see for the, on that bailiff question, bailiff does not believe they can collect. I mean, discuss it with the bailiff. If this is a place that has an establishment in Quebec, why does the bailiff feel that they can collect? And then it's your choice. If you discuss it with the bailiff and then you decide, do I risk my $300 or do I just walk away from this? That's the best I can say. Okay.
Yeah, there's no other questions really. So I don't know if people just want to, I guess, jump in if anyone else, if you want to raise your hand and then you can ask your question. I'm just checking for the sales tax for the books because I ordered a book not too long ago. So I'm just checking that one on my phone.
And if you ordered a book from outside of Quebec, then there shouldn't be any sales tax at all. It's normally interprovincial for sales. I don't think there's any tax at all. Okay, books shipped to a Canadian address are subject to GST, but not PST. Okay, so Jennifer is really.
And that's from Jennifer, who's with
Yes.
Greg Kelly's office. So
Terrific.
she's got a legal mind.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Jennifer, you work for an MP, that's correct?
Yep, she's correct. It's GST. I just found my invoice. It's
An
only
M&A.
GST.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just GST.
I have a question. I noticed something in the Gazette today about the new Quebec law against identity theft.
Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to answer, but go ahead with your question.
They're telling you to lock in your credit file, proactive way to protect yourself. This is the article.
Okay, I think that we'll have to call that information, and sounds like good information, but I can't really, add anything to that. I don't even exactly know what that means. So I suggest people read the article or maybe Jennifer, who's been so helpful, can provide a link with more information. But if not, it seems like a new law and sounds like could be a good protection with all the identity theft. We do have another workshop called Fraud Doesn't Just Happen to Others. You could check, remember we saw our workshops page. You can see if that's coming up, or workshops usually repeat every couple of months, and that deals, I believe, with identity theft. Okay.
Richard, a question came in that's kind of not really part of the webinar, but extended car warranties. Because we were talking about warranties. So are they good?
Warranties, I mean, we did touch on it. I don't have anything specific to say about cars. In general, they're not worth it because everything should last a reasonable amount of time. I don't know if that's any different than for cars than for, an Apple computer, that, the extended warranty is generally not worth it. There's a very good advocacy group in Quebec, the Automobilist Protection Agency, and my former classmate at McGill, Giorgini, heads that up. I would suggest checking with them what they think about extended warranties, because they're really an excellent advocacy group for anything to do with car purchases, car warranties, and so on.
If I can
Okay, so-
jump in, we had Giorgini on a webinar in September. And his presentation, or the recording of his session, is definitely on Seniors Action Quebec social media platforms, including our website, our YouTube page. So if anybody wants to, and I know he made definite reference to extended warranties.
Oh, terrific. Okay,
So
there
you can go and look at the different ones. We also get my months straight, November, I think it was, did a major workshop on fraud and scams. And that's also uploaded. So if you're new and you haven't been to previous sessions, I would suggest that you look at them, and you will find different topics that might be very pertinent for today.
Okay, thanks. That's great. I see there's a question about Canada Post not issuing a refund it promised. I would suggest talking to your MP. It seems to me that an intervention from an MP should unblock a refund from Canada Post pretty quickly. That would be my suggestion. I see gift cards, and I did touch on that before. Gift cards in Quebec are not supposed to expire. So even if they have an expiry date, they have to be honored. So you should insist on it being honored. If they're not honored, then we're back to the recourses you have. Complain to the Consumer Protection Office, or probably you won't bother doing this for $50 or $100, but maybe it's more. Be prepared to, sue them or threaten to sue them. But probably the complaint to the Consumer Protection Office should get them to clean up their act at no cost and minimal inconvenience to you.
If I can ask the question, because my with Moishe's restaurant is closed, but they have products on the shelf of the stores.
Which product or store? I didn't get it.
Moishe's, the restaurant Moishe.
Oh, well, if you have a gift card for Moishe's restaurant, Moishe's is closed, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
But they have products. They have products at Costco. They have pickles,
right. But Costco is not Moishe's. So I think if the company exists, if Moishe's exists, I don't know if they went out of business. I guess if they're still selling products, they didn't go out of business, and I think you can ask that they refund your gift card. It seems to me it's not your fault they went out of business and somebody paid, who knows, 100, whatever, for the gift card. So I think you can insist on it, and if they don't comply, I would say complain to the Consumer Protection Office.
Thank you for the information.
I agree with you, Richard, because I lost money with gift cards from Beftech that is gone. But go to your head office of Moishe's and see if you can exchange that gift card for products.
Yeah. Okay, how are we doing?
I think if we have no more questions, we are just about, we're 20 to 12 and a little bit early, doesn't necessarily disturb people to finish up a bit early. So I think I'll do a wrap up. Richard, thank you very much. This was great information. And as Richard suggested, check out Éducaloi's website, the Consumer Protection Office. If you've got vehicle issues, Automobile Protection Association, there's all great kinds of information out there. Travel situations, I strongly recommend that you contact Mark Garneau's office, and he has a lovely lady working in his office, Margaret Guest, and she would be pleased to help you because he's the minister who implemented the Bill of Rights for travelers. So you'll get the information of what's available firsthand. As we stated earlier, because some people did come on a bit later, if you saw me scrambling, that was, they couldn't find their link. Please, you're going to get a link for the recording in about 2-3 days. You're going to also get a survey questionnaire. As I mentioned, for our funders, it's absolutely essential that We get you all to fill it out. It's simple, it's fast, it's not going to take a lot of time. You just click buttons and put in your few comments and just do submit, and it takes care of it, and it all goes directly to Katya. I will be sending out Richard's presentation, and hopefully I can get that done today to everybody who registered, so watch for it. And just to let you know that on March the 14th is our last webinar of this series, and maybe for a little while, and it's on estate planning. There's going to be a financial advisor and how to ensure that your heirs get all that they should be getting, how to do a search, or your liquidator do a search if you can't, they can't find your documents. And it's not just wills. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's above and beyond wills. So I think it's very valuable information. I'm taking registrations now. I probably have about 62 already. So if you're interested, get me your email and your phone number, and I will register you for the March 14th, same time, 10 to noon. And I'm going to be leaving for a small vacation as of the 24th of February. So if you register after that, you'll see on the poster that was sent out and is on our website and whatnot, you're going to register through Seniors Action Quebec, because I won't be here to take it. Is there anything else I need to tell you or recommend to you?
So actually, just so people don't get confused, because Ruth is leaving for the next webinar, it's please send, if possible, just so people don't get confused, the registrations to our info at Seniors Action Quebec. I'll put it in the chat just so.
Yeah, but I'm here until the 23rd, so I can
No,
take them now.
But that, yeah, that's, so just send them to info and we can forward them to Ruth. I think that's the easiest thing. So I'll put the email in the chat.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is after the 23rd, I'm not going to be able to take your registrations. They have to go to info at Seniors Action Quebec. But if you get them into me sooner, then I'll have the list and they'll get the list before I leave. I don't think there's anything more from me. Katya, thanks for all your help and all your technical support. I thank everybody who registered for Duke for making the appearance and coming on. And Richard, once again, tremendous information, so great. It's a little cool out there, but supposed to warm up, but it's a nice bright day. So have a marvelous day. And hopefully we'll see most of you back in March.
Keep warm, everyone. Thanks for your participation.
Bye-bye. Be well.